So I'm reposting my video on how to repair the Sienna horn. The first video that I had showed that you could just clean the contacts and that would take care of it, but that is a very short solution. So I had to dig a little further, and there is something called a clock spring on the inside, and that's a fairly expensive part, and I was hoping not to have to replace that. And I found someone else who had said that it was actually the down on the shaft. It's like a bearing or something that has rust in it. So this video shows you how to go down into that area, clean out the rust using a tuner cleaner, and then shoot some WD-40 in there. Now to get down there, you actually have to take out the clock spring. So if it turns out it's your clock spring, then you can just replace that and not have to worry about anything else. If it's your clock spring, things like your cruise control, your audio controls on your radio won't work, or they're intermittent, or you'll have the same problems. If the issue is just the horn, then in my experience, it is the part that is the the bearing that's on the shaft. That's the problem, and it has rust in it and makes a poor contact. I cleaned mine up, and it works great now. So for just a little bit of time on my part and no additional cost, I've got my horn working again on my 1999 Sienna. So I hope this video helps you. Thanks. Disconnect the negative post of your battery, not the positive post. That would be too dangerous. This takes a 10mm wrench to loosen the bolt, and just put it someplace where it won't touch the post of the battery again. On the inside, remove the spare change holder, and behind it you will find the fuses. You want to take out the 15 amp fuse, right there. I've already removed it, but it's below 2 7.5, and it's the last one on the right hand side. It's a 15. Take that one out. That's the SRS airbag fuse. Once you've disconnected your battery, on the steering wheel, on each side, there is a small cap. Right there. See that? And you just take a small screwdriver, there's a little tab, and that pops out. Be sure to save that. You need to put that back on when you're finished. On the inside, if I can get it in there, is a bolt, and that's a Torx bolt. And the size on that Torx bolt is a T30. So you need a T30 to take that bolt out. It just fits right down inside there, and then just, it's not very tight, but it is snug in there, so just remove that counterclockwise, lefty-loosey, righty-tighty. On mine, we have the deluxe radio. So on the left-hand side, you have the controls for volume, mute, and so on. If you don't have this, then you would just have another little cover with the Torx bolt on the inside. But this one, like I said, is the deluxe model. So there's one screw that holds this in, and it's right there, and that is a Torx T15. That screw comes out. I can get that out of there. Well, okay, so that comes out, and then this portion, it just pops off. It just slides out, and then you can see down inside there the other T30 Torx bolt. You take that one out, and with those, they don't come completely out. They're in a plastic holder sort of thing. So just go counterclockwise, get them out as far as you can until you feel that it's starting to that it's no longer holding. And once you've done that, then you can just come to the airbag, and it just wiggles out of there. Those two bolts hold it in. That's all that holds it in. When it comes out, there's going to be a cable that's attached to it, so you just set that aside. I just left it inside the steering wheel there while I worked on it. After you've removed the airbag carefully, on each side you will see retainers. There are 4 bolts, top and bottom, left and right. Here and here. Remove those 4 bolts, and then on the left side the entire unit will come out. These are the same size Torx bolts that we use to unscrew on each side of the steering wheel yoke. So we're just going to put this in here, and then we unscrew it. Come off fairly easy. We take off the top, we take off the bottom screw. They both come out, and this entire piece will come out of here. And the top piece is just, you set that aside with the 2 screws, and then the bottom piece is what we're going to work on. On the right side, there is a wire that holds it. That's the horn wire. These just come out like this. And underneath each one of these is a clip like this. There's one on this side, and there's one on this side. They're identical to one another. You take those out, and on the inside there are metal contacts on each end, so we rotate it, and then on the bottom there's another set of contacts. Those are dirty. Clean those up. I use a small file, just polish them up, and then I use a tuner cleaner, and I just cleaned up the whole thing because there was a little bit of rust on this metal part here. So clean those up. So the first repair that I did, it lasted for a little while, cleaning up the contacts, but it did not seem to, it was intermittent at best. So we're going to look at it. We've got 2 other options. One is to take a look at the bearing. There's a bearing on the shaft, so we're going to have to take the steering wheel off for that. This is what we had repaired before, and I've already taken the one out on this left side here. So on this one, you just need to remove this red wire. It comes out, and take the 2 screws out. This whole piece comes out. That little red wire, you can just use, I think I used a paper clip, I can't remember. Anyway, we took that out, and then in order to get this speed control and whatnot out of there, as well as this, and I just have a piece of tape on here to hold it for video purposes. It's already loose and hanging. So what I did was I removed this screw, and there's 3 of these, and here's 2 more right there and there, and then this whole piece, if I can get that to come out. I just have it in there real loose, just to hold it in place for a few seconds. Okay, we take that screw out, and then this piece, it was underneath here, so it slides out from underneath here, and then you can just kind of rotate it a little bit, and it comes right out through that little hole like that. And then, of course, everything's loose in here. So this has to come out, this top piece up here, and I used a little ice pick, and right underneath in the middle is a little pin that you can release right under there, and this whole piece, excuse me, that little pin right there comes out or pushes up, and then this whole plug will come out of there. All right, so that comes out, and then we can take that, and I'll take my tape off now, and this whole piece, and all of this wonderful stuff comes out. And then you can take out these screws, they're a little bit tighter than the rest of them, and just take those out. Try not to lose them. And then this piece will come out, and this piece that's back here, that's the what's called a clock spring. And what that's supposed to do is when you turn the steering wheel, that's supposed to rotate. And there's if you've ever seen a ribbon cable in a computer, that kind of rotates on the inside of this around and around. One way it unwinds and the other way it tightens up. And that's so that all your individual things, cruise control and your audio controls, all that is contained through that. I don't know that mine is bad. That's an expensive part. So in this video, what I'm going to do is take things out, take the steering wheel off, and then look at, I was told there's a bearing down below that can get corroded and not make a good ground for everything else. So we're going to look at that first. Now, I have to take clock spring out in order to see that. These two screws up here, I don't know if these had to come out. It's for holding this in place. You got two at the bottom, and then you just have clips. You have two screws at the top, and then you just have clips at the bottom down below. So I've taken the screws out. I haven't taken the clips off, and we're going to see if that comes off when I take the steering wheel off. Something else that you want to do is make sure that you put tape so that you know where your steering wheel is. You want to make sure that you get it aligned, so just have some kind of tape or something on there. And I'm also probably going to put some marks here with my magic marker to make sure that it all comes back in the same place. Same is true for the clock spring. You have to have some kind of marking. So let me get the steering wheel off. I'll take the picture afterward. And so after taking the bolt off, I just did a wiggle back and forth. I know that's, but I had my hands on the left and the right, 9 o'clock and 3 o'clock, and just wiggled. And yeah. Unfortunately, I need two hands to do this. It's so tight. Let's try this, see if this will work. There we go. It comes right off. So now that's off, and like I said earlier, the thing that's looking at us right now is the clock spring. Now I got to figure out how to take that off. I've taken the two screws out of here, and then there was one more on the bottom down there, and I thought this would come off pretty easy. It does not, but after a little wiggling and stuff, I'm able to lift this part up and pull this part down. Well, maybe it'll come off now. Anyway, what that does is it allows me to see the screws for the clock spring. There, and there. These tapes are for my little markings to let me know where the steering wheel went. Okay, so now I'm going to take these out, and I'll take the clock spring out, and then we'll see where we go from there. With those two screws out, actually when I started jiggling, there was a tab, and I'm thinking he goes over here, right here where the adjuster is. And there was one over here on this side too. I think both of those came out, and it allowed me to open this up a little bit better. So I took the 4 screws out for the clock spring, and it just slides forward. And then there's these 2 connectors down here. You take that out, and you take the clock spring out. So although it's expensive, to get it out is not difficult. It was surprisingly better than what I thought it was going to be. So anyway, the next thing that I've read is somewhere down in here. I think there's this bearing that people said it's inside of here is dirty or something. I am not sure what that is, but I'll see if I can't take this ring here. Feels like it's loose, but I got to be careful that I don't move stuff and not mark it. So down in there, down in that shaft, it looks a little rusty. And that may be the source of my problems. I'm trying to shine a light down there so you can see. But I think that's where that bearing is. So what I'm going to do, I've got some cleaner, some tuner. It's actually electronic tuner cleaner. But it leaves no residue, and it does clean. I'll bring the can out here, and I'll show you what that is. So this is CRC QD contact cleaner. There, looks better. Quick drying, leaves no residue, plastic safe, and food grade. So it's fairly safe to use. It comes with a little straw. Make sure that the spray always lines up. There's always a little red dot on these things. Make sure that it lines up so that the stuff comes out. I don't think you have to shake it, but I always do. And we're going to spray that down in there. So, oh yeah, I can see rust. Yeah. You can see rust down in there. It's dripping out. I better get something before the wife has a fit here. So what I did was squirt some of a CRC chemical formula down in there, and as you can see, there's a lot of rust that was in there. A word to the wise: shove a paper towel or two down below to catch it, because if you don't, depending on how much you squirt. Now I was lucky enough it didn't run out onto the carpet, but I did put some down there, and then after I did the CRC and wiped all this out of there as best as I could. Of course, the CRC stuff will evaporate, but I wanted to get some of the residue out of the way. And then I used WD-40 in there. Now, WD-40 is not really a lubricating oil, but then again, neither is that rust that was in there. So I figured the WD-40, which is water displacement, it won't hurt to be down in there. And then if I can find if down the road I hear it squeaking or something, I'll probably get like a lightweight spray oil to put down in there. But for right now, we're just going to leave it the way that it is. And I'm going to put it all back together. One other thing is, notice that there are two cutouts here, and they're at 9 o'clock and 3 o'clock, and then there's 3 nubs. So I'm going to try to put everything back together again. And if this doesn't do it, then I'm going to guess that it is this clock spring. And that's, I think, somewhere between $200 and $300. It is not cheap. When I took the Sienna to get new tires at my Toyota dealership, I told them what the problem was, and they thought it was the clock spring. So it's either the contact that I showed you before, it's either that or the down in this area where it's all rusty and not making a good contact, or it's the clock spring. And with what I've put together in this video so far, you should be able to fix any of those things. Anyway, I'll post and let you know how it turns out. Okay, so I've got the clock spring back in. That had 4 brass screws at the 4 corners here, and then these are my tapes, and I put this piece of tape on here because this inner part will rotate apart from the outside, and I didn't want to have that happen, so I have put that little piece of tape on there to hold it. And that's it, I think. And now I need to put in, there's 3 screws. There's 2 here, they're the black screws, and then on the very bottom down below here there's a little brass looking screw, and then there's a tab I told you about earlier, goes here, and one down there. I'm going to be putting those back on next. Okay, just as an FYI, when I was putting this back together, I found that these 2 pieces will come out. The only thing that's holding those in, that screw, and the one brassy looking screw down below. There's also these tabs. They don't do anything. They'll probably come out on their own when you're working with it, just because they fall out. But there's no access that's there. The one that was on this side that fell out, he was just up there. And there's a little nib that goes on the bottom. It's pretty easy to see how that goes back together. But I just wanted to let you know that these do come apart fairly easy. And you can I took the bottom one out and cleaned out the rest of the rust and the gunk that was down there. I think I left just the top on here, mainly because it has my little marker. So anyway, let's see. Next step, I think, is the steering wheel. So we're gonna put that on now. So this is gonna be a little tricky with just my 2 hands. I got no helper today. So I'm going to take this piece off, because that's what was holding the whole thing in place. Yeah. Nothing wants to cooperate. All right, we take that off. Put it out of the way. And then the steering wheel goes on. So I've got my blue marker here and my blue marker there. And then I've got one on the inside on the clock spring. And that's going to line up with this one here. So you have to feed the little yellow cable through that. And then we lift the steering wheel up. Let's see, all right. So my little blue tape lines up there, and my blue tape up here. Where'd it go? I can't see it. There it is. There it is. So that lines up on the top. All right. So I've got my nut here, and I don't know what the torque is, unfortunately. But I'm going to make it snug. It was not terribly difficult to get off, so I'll get my tools here and I'll tighten this down, then we'll put the rest of the electronics back in there. Hook everything up, see if the horn blows. Okay, you have to feed the little line through here, and this piece goes on next. And then the two little brass screws go in there. Change hands here. I apologize for the jerkiness. These are little Phillips head brass screws that go in here. Alright, and let's see. Then we have all these nice doodads that go in, so this now feeds in up at the top. There we go. And we're going to feed this in through the side. Now, of course, nothing wants to cooperate. Anyway, this part goes back through its little hole, and the plastic part goes underneath like that. So make sure that goes underneath like that. We'll take another stab at this. Let's see. Yep. So he should go through like that. Yeah. And he will go on later on, but we got to put the rest of the stuff in first. There's nothing there to screw it onto, but he's going to go in there like that. And then the next part is to put this in. Trying to look through the camera and look at the steering wheel at the same time. No, that's not going to work. Anyway, what I wanted to show you is that this little red wire here goes up in that last position. Up in there. I can't do that with my hands either. I'll need to free up my hands. But anyway, it goes up in that last little position up in there. That's for that. It's the actual wire for when you press on the steering, on the airbag, that it makes the horn go off. So I'm going to need to have both hands in order to do this. So I will show you back when I finish and get it all together. So when we screw these in here to where they were before, and then you'll do the other side exactly the same way. There's no difference except for the one piece of wire that is connected on this side. So now we tighten them up. Again, these are Torx bolts. And I just make it snug. I'll do the bottom one here. Okay, takes that out, and then we're ready to put the airbag back in. And we want to make sure that our screws here, these do not come out, of course. We just push them back out so they'll be out of the way. Same one on this side. Just push them back a little bit. They're held in place by a little piece of plastic. And then we set the airbag right inside. There we go. Pops right into place. Alright. When we go to tighten these down, you need to give these a little push, because remember that we set them in that plastic to get them out of the way. So you just give them a little push inward, and then you can start turning the bolts. And finally, we put back the little button here. Well, yeah, that's that one right there. It just pops right in there. No big deal. On the opposite side, we have the little controls for the stereo system, so that just slides back in place there. And there is a screw. I'm having trouble with the lighting here. There. That little screw right there. It holds this piece on and covers up the left side bolt for this. And that should be the same Torx. There's one screw that holds it on. This one's labeled a T5. So we're just going to tighten that puppy up. And then we have to put the fuse back. Well, I can't hold the camera and do this too, so. I'll get the lighting here right in a minute. Okay, so on the far right, you see that 15. I'll put it in upside down, but that doesn't make any difference. So it's back in place, and that's on the bottom right-hand side. The blue one is 15. That is the multitude of things, but it's primarily for the airbags and the cigar lighter. So we restore the cup holder, I'm sorry, the change holder. So after we replace the fuse and the change holder and the wife's change, I've now reconnected the battery, putting the negative cable on the negative post. And now we're going to go in and see if I've done it right. Okay, so I think I got it this time. I did not replace the clock spring. I just lubricated that one area. Seems to be working fine. Problem I had last time was turning the steering wheel sometimes would make the horn blow, and I think I fixed that too. So anyway, that seems to have done it for us. And like I said, even if it's the clock spring, you've got the instructions now on how to do it. So I'm sure the wife will be a happy camper now that she can blow her horn at the people that are sitting there on a green light.